interest to create silos. And people don't like silos because they're like, oh my God, well I don't have any flexibility. Well, guess what? You can have flexibility with $10 million, but you're not going to have flexibility with $50 million. I want my $50 million to go to roads. And you can do whatever you want with that other $10 million, but we need this money to go for this dedicated source. Otherwise, as we've seen with stormwater, there's no money spent on it. They just kept pulling it out and pulling it out and pulling it out. And they'll give you a great sheet that says, oh, look at all the money we spent on stormwater in the last 12 months. Well, that's great, but you should have been spending it on stormwater the last 30 years. So one thing that, oh yeah, more than that. Well, yeah, in the 1980s we really dropped off, but one thing that neighbors and neighborhoods can do is you have to get people into your neighborhoods who know what's going on. I think in the next 2 months the gag will be off of city staff and they will be able to tell you the truth. So at that point in time, I would invite those people to come and tell you what the state of affairs really are. So, because we can't go around and keep putting our heads in the sand and just telling you what it is that we think you want to hear, because then you wake up and you're like, well, how come I still have potholes in my roads? If everyone told me it was fine, why do I need a new alignment? It's not working. It doesn't do us any good to do anything but tell you exactly what the problem is and then bring forward solutions. The community then gets to decide on those solutions. If you don't like the solutions, that's fine. Call whoever's in power at the time and tell them, I don't like that, but what about this? You think we could put this together? If we all come together to create the solution and everybody's on board with the solution, we will get a solution. So one more segue and then we'll go to Paula. Everyone pays property taxes, at least if you own property, and if not, it comes out of your rent. How much money on an average house do you think goes to the city in property taxes?
About 1%.
Mine's $800 a year.
Okay. So the average property tax is about $1,100, and $84 of that goes to the city. So it's a very small amount. So even if we doubled the amount of property tax that goes to the city, on average it's still $160. But it would start whittling away at those roads, and if everybody agreed, just make it dedicated. It has to go to roads. Because having been there, done that, I personally I don't feel comfortable with the carte blanche approach. Okay, you get to decide. Well, what if you decide you want to redo the entire side of Pikes Peak and Evergreen that are blue and orange and pink and whatever, just because you felt like it doesn't do me any good. I want my roads. So, again, all of my personal opinion, but having, again, been there, done that, I like dedicated funding. PPRTA is great, and that's why we chose to model stormwater after PPRTA, because you know when you pay that, those dollars are going there. And that's the only place that they're going, and if they're not, somebody's in trouble. So, does that help a little bit?
Well, I have a comment to your statement. I think that the neighborhoods don't necessarily need to let the candidates know how bad the problem is, because if you've been paying attention, every single one of those mayoral candidates is running on pretty much the same platform, and infrastructure is one of their top priorities. So they know it's a problem. It's just convincing our community that we have to invest in ourselves. Because like Brandy said, there's not money to get it done.
We're going to eventually slide off the hill, though, if something is done.
Yeah.
And
I'll be up front on the Southers campaign, so I think he'll do the best job.
Okay, going back to the election, kind of full circle with your first question, or one of the early things that we know there was an election. I am very concerned with the community and the apathy that we would have just a 30% turnout for such an important time of our city. And we have wonderful civic like-minded people in this room. I'm just wondering how we, as citizens who really care and really want the best for this city, can change that, can really build on it. It was suggested we change the election to November. Yes, that's a good suggestion. I think it's wonderful. But in the meantime, where are we? I remember reading in the paper that Jeriah Walker said that he didn't even have stamps in his home for a mail-in ballot, you know. So, wow, there we're really talking about a generational type of thing. Just wondering what anybody, and you in particular, Brandy, how can we make a change? How can Colorado Springs be on the national news for, you know, the biggest voter turnout because this is what they believe in their city and their city council members and their mayor, and this is what they want?
Go to online voting.
That's an option, yeah, change
Then
it to the
then you
state
get
level.
the millennials in.
So with online voting, I think really it's the neighborhoods, and I'm glad that Dave is going through this particular exercise, because another thing that people are now disenfranchised with are the parties. Don't particularly like this party, and they don't particularly like that party, and if they're not really involved in either party, they seem to just feel that that gives them an excuse to just ignore the whole situation. So if you have neighborhoods that are not Democrat or Republican or any other particular party, that are just people that care about their community, make it important and make people feel like it's not that scary thing over there, oh my God, government, oh my God, elections, that they can say, actually, I've met one of the candidates and they're not that scary. Actually, I've met one of the candidates and they're your age. People aren't going to look at a ballot and go, Jeriah Walker, I'm pretty sure he's my age. They don't know that. But if this group can create those neighborhoods and create those environments where you have meetings and you say, hey, this week we're going to talk about elections. Next week we're going to talk about gardening. Like, have things that bring the community together and eventually throw in some civic engagement. I think that's going to be a lot better, because the disenfranchisement is coming from every direction, and people under 40 just don't even want to deal with it. And by the time they figure out they need to deal with it, that's when they're in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they're looking at their retirement account and like, man, I wish I'd paid more attention in the last 30 years. So I think it really is just that person-to-person communication, emphasizing how important this is on their everyday lives.
Brandy, if I could, I'd like that. We're about to have to stop probably, unless you want to stay longer. But
I think Charles had a question.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
And that is, one of the things that that has been concerning me, and I think concerning the board of Kono and other people who are being thoughtful about this, is that we have, over the last 20, 30 years or so, we have developed neighborhoods that are largely homeowner associations, largely self-governing, and where, in order to facilitate the building of these neighborhoods, we've allowed the developers to impose essentially a tax
Very big one.
on that. So as a result, we have neighborhoods, particularly in the north and northeast of the city, where the infrastructure is paid for by the citizens who live there as part of their fee for living in that place. And on the other hand, we have neighborhoods like the ones in the southeast in particular, where there's not that at all. And can you address how you see that, how you view that as a city councilwoman, and how you view that?
That came up when we were on council, because again, you have the wide variety. You have those that are paying 50 mils on top of what everybody else is paying to pay for all their infrastructure, and those that live in neighborhoods that don't have that mill levy added on, and they're relying on the city. So I think that's going to be a giant roll the map out conversation, and you're not going to retroactive any of this. But one thing you could do is say, going forward or at some set point in time, we're going to get everybody on the same page. But that's going to take some extreme leadership to really bring the neighborhoods together, the HOAs together, the developers together, the community together, and it's going to take a tax that spreads throughout the city, whatever it looks like, to make it so it's the same yet equal. It's a very delicate balance, and it's not going to be an easy answer to that particular one, because I'm used to having green lawns, everything mowed, roads taken care of, sidewalks taken care of, everything, and now I have to share this with the rest of the community. Maybe if we could get everybody up to par, and then if and beyond that, you can put yourself in a taxing district as opposed to being placed in a taxing district. That could be an option.
When you were on council, did you guys talk with the lawyers about what it would actually take to put everyone on that even keel? Because the ones who are already in them, I heard it with Joel Miller talking about it during the campaign, saying, if we make a mill levy now across the entire city, well, that's gonna raise those people who are already paying up significantly higher, and they've already been paying,
Right, that's why
for their neighborhood.
You need to draw a line in the sand and
But-
say, from this point forward, we're not going to do this
Legally,
anymore.
did you guys ever talk with the lawyers to see if that's something that
Kidding,
can
right?
be done?
We didn't have a lawyer for 4 years, because we didn't have a lawyer for 2 years, and the one that we had would tell me whatever he felt like saying that day, so.
Good point, thanks.
No, legally, we did not get an answer to that question.
Okay.
Good one.
Yes, ma'am. You are, I would just say, how do I ask this? I'd like to see you do more than just be a city engineer, a Nassau County engineer. How can we keep you involved more in what you're doing right here? And are you planning on running for anything in the future?
$1 million question.
Almost.
Well, or the $400 a month question.
Yeah, well, 500 now.
Yeah, come on.
Well, after taxes, that's it. You get $400 checking account. So before I delve in one direction or another in politics, because I could run for county commissioner or city council or a gamut of things. I would really like to help Jan tackle some issues with council before I decided to join that particular very difficult, insane elected office again. And that would be, we need to go back to 4 districts. We need to have people represented by a supermajority that they have voted for. Not a person who got 2,000 votes and represents over 400,000 people. I don't think that's fair to the people. You've got to pay your council members, come on, really? You can't live on $400 a month, that's just not, it's not fair. I'll just call it the fair card. You're gonna get what you pay for, let's put it that way. If you want a stagnant city, then we've got it. Because there aren't a lot of people that are as crazy as I am to put yourself in that position and say, yep, I'm gonna eat eggs and bananas for the next 2 years every morning and see what else I can find throughout the day. No one is that crazy. And I think they need paid, they need re-elected. There's one more, but it'll come to me. So once we solve those particular issues, I would be more apt to rejoin that party because it's not an easy job. And you really do need somebody who gives it full-time attention to move the city forward because, like I said before, if no one puts a stake in the ground and no one keeps calling you day after day and going, are you coming? Are you coming? We're having a meeting. Are you here? Did you make a decision? People just disappeared. And they're like, come on, we were supposed to get something done. So it does take a lot of inertia to get it done, and whoever the next group of councilors are and the mayor are will figure that out, but it does take a lot to move a city forward. It's not just going to do it because you showed up and you sat in your chair for a little while. So, will that help answer your question a little bit? Okay, I think we're past time.
Let me, thank you very much. I wrote this somewhat cryptically, but Friday we have our first ever neighborhood awards ceremony at Ivy Mile School from 5:30 to 7:30. It's also our first ever fundraising activity. So if you would like to help us, we would love to have you. I know that at least one mayoral candidate is coming to this. And then Saturday we're having a series of workshops and displays and sort of table presentations. We have at least 45 people coming for that, 45 different topics that will be represented, nonprofits, government agencies, and very few, only our sponsors are allowed to have a table if they aren't a nonprofit. So we have 45 of those, and we may have 50 or more before we're done here. That's from 10 to 3 Saturday. Please come, it's free. We'd love to have you there, and I think you'll learn some interesting things. We're going to have conversations on a few things we've talked about. We're going to have a conversation on infill. We're going to have a conversation on code enforcement. There are two things, by the way, that we discovered are important to every neighborhood in the city. One of those is code enforcement, and the other is, actually, one of those is safety, and code enforcement is a big part of that. And the other is beauty of the neighborhood, and code enforcement has a lot to do with that as well. We are not in a great shape when you compare us to the rest of the Front Range. We are spending far less and employing far fewer people than any other city. So the other thing is, we're having another one of these, having four more of these conversations at lunch tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Tomorrow is Margaret Radford, and like Brandy, she believes in speaking her mind. Her language is sometimes a little